Red Riding Hood, Cinderella, Hansel and Gretel, Snow White, etc. Everybody knows these fairy tales, either from the Disney movies or from children's books. They are beautiful stories that tell about princes, witches, and dragons. But these contemporary versions are not the versions that the Grimm Brothers initially published, and their versions were not intended for kids at all. Back in the early 1800s, Jacob and Wilhelm Grimm were working as librarians. Born into a well-off family, their life took a turn for the worse when their father died, and the brothers struggled through school and university in poverty. During their time at university, the brothers came in contact with a German history professor named Savigny and were able to use his personal library as they became very interested in German history and folklore. Around this time, their mother also died, and Jacob and Wilhelm grew concerned about the stability of the family. Nonetheless, they stayed interested in German history, especially in ancient folk tales. In 1809, the brothers were given a task to collect oral folk tales so they could be safe from extinction. The Grimms eagerly accepted this task and started gathering many old books. They also traveled to remote rustic parts of Germany to interview many old men and ask them to recount the tales they knew. Many of these tales the old man told them were old warning stories for children, which were made to make kids afraid of the big forest, thereby ensuring that they would not wander off too far. That is one of the reasons why the forest plays such an important role in many fairy tales. Now, this task the Grimms were given was actually part of a wider political movement in Germany at the time. The country was split into 200 principalities, and many people, including the Grimms, wanted to see them united as a single nation. So many writers and thinkers turned to traditional folklore to construct a certain national background where every German could identify with. In a spirit of romanticism, the theory was that these stories, which had been passed down from one generation to the next, contained the collective hopes, fears, and morals of all German people. The Grimms weren't the only ones putting together collections of folklore, but it's their work that became the best known. The Grimms bundled their experiences and poured them in separate stories. The first volume of the first edition was published in 1812 and contained 86 stories. This volume was much criticized because, although the title was Children's Tales or Kinder- und Hausmärchen, they were not regarded as suitable for children. You see, the Grimms had tried to represent the original stories as faithfully as possible, even if that meant gory and vulgar details. If you don't feel like getting your childhood memory shattered, click away now, because in what follows I'm going to compare the child-friendly present-day version of the fairy tales to the grisly original Grimm version. According to Disney, after her widowed father remarries and then dies, Cinderella is left at the mercy of her wicked stepmother and two ugly stepsisters. They force her to do manual labor and wear rags. But she's so sweet, kind and beautiful that even wild animals love her and help her out. When the prince of the kingdom throws a ball, Cinderella's fairy godmother appears and creates a dress, coach and footman for her so she can go to the party. The prince falls in love with her, but the magic ends at midnight, so she has to run away, leaving behind only her glass slipper. The prince travels the land looking for the girl who fits the shoe, but her stepsisters sabotage her by smashing it. Luckily, she still has the other shoe, so she gets to live happily ever after. But in the original version, Cinderella, or Aschenputtel, meaning Ash Fool, has two beautiful stepsisters. They just happen to have a horrible personality. There is no fairy godmother, just white doves sent to help Cinderella by her dead mother, and the prince actually holds 3 balls. At midnight on the third night, the prince lays a tart trap for Cinderella, which is where she loses her shoe. And when the prince travels the land in search for the girl who fits the shoe, her sisters each cut off different parts of their feet in order to fit into the tiny slipper. But the blood dripping from their shoes gives them away. The prince eventually finds his girl, and at their wedding, the magic doves reappear to peck out the evil sister's eyes. According to Disney, threatened by her stepdaughter's beauty, a wicked stepmother orders a huntsman to take the young girl out into the woods and kill her. The huntsman cannot do it, however, and lets Snow White escape into the forest. She finds a tiny house where singing dwarfs, all named for their defining characteristics, live. They decide to let her stay to keep house for them. The wicked queen finds out via her magic mirror that Snow White is not dead, and sets out to kill her with a poisoned apple. Though the dwarves get revenge by driving the queen off the edge of a cliff, they cannot wake Snow White, until a passing prince comes and wakes her with true love's kiss, and then they live happily ever after. But originally, in the first edition of the story, it wasn't the wicked stepmother at all. It was Snow White's own mother, and she didn't just want Snow White's heart, she wanted her lungs and liver too. When she discovers that the huntsman has not killed the girl, she sets out to try to kill her in 3 different ways. First with an overly tight corset, then with a poisoned comb, and finally with a poisoned apple. In the original version, Snow White isn't revived by a true love's kiss. Instead, the prince takes a good hold of her and gives her a good shake. And in the end, the queen doesn't get pushed off a cliff. She's forced to dance herself to death in a pair of red-hot iron shoes. Disney's adaptation of Rapunzel, or Tangled, is very recent and not very traditional. Rapunzel gets a lot more agency than most other Disney princesses, and her prince isn't a prince at all. But the elements of a sanitized Rapunzel story are there. A beautiful princess is kept captive by a witch who uses the girl's long hair to climb in and out of the tower prison, and it's only when she meets a man that she gets to escape. But originally, according to the Grimms, the reason the wicked witch gets to make off with baby Rapunzel is because her dad stole herbs from the witch's garden, and when he got caught, he agreed to hand over his firstborn. Stuck into the tower, Rapunzel lets down her hair for the witch day after day, but when a passing prince hears her singing, he decides to pay Rapunzel a visit himself. He secretly visits her several times, and the witch only finds out because Rapunzel gets pregnant and innocently asks why her belly is getting so big. In a rage, the witch cuts off the girl's long hair and uses it to lure the prince back into the tower. Then she chucks him off the top, letting him fall into a thorn bush that plucks out his eyes. Eventually though, there is a happy ending, when the couple gets back together and Rapunzel's tears heal the prince's eyes. That's it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you again in a future video.